Hello, everybody. We are here in Austin, Texas for the Consensus 2022 by CoinDesk, a blockchain conference. And it's also called the Festival for the Decentralized World. And we are here with Justin, the CEO of Telos Foundation, and AJ, who is the business development, who takes care of the business development aspect of Telos Foundation. Great. So, welcome both of you. Justin, the first question I want to ask you is, give us tell us about your journey into blockchain and the whole decentralized world.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, my journey was an interesting one. The first time I used cryptocurrency was actually to buy I wouldn't say a legal drug, but called modafinil. It's basically like a study drug.
Uh-huh.
I think they used it in the movie Limitless. But yeah, it basically keeps you awake at night, so then you can do study or get work done. So yeah, it was a good way to buy that. Was using Bitcoin. So that was my first transaction, was using some Bitcoin. I kind of wish I kept that Bitcoin because it actually, like, I don't know, I think it cost like 1.5 Bitcoin at the time. And it's like, at the top of the bull market, I was like, oh, that's like 60K. So yeah, it was very interesting. But yeah, in doing that, I realized, like, okay, this is an interesting thing, decentralized money. But Bitcoin itself was a little bit boring to me because, I don't know, it was too slow. You had to wait 10 minutes or whatever. It cost too much. And I was like, I just couldn't see that taking off. So I started looking into it more, and I realized I wanted to get more involved eventually, but more on a scalable protocol that could be used on more different things, and also at a lower cost. And more user-friendly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think a lot of them have different ways of getting into the whole decentralized world. It's a nice story that you have.
Yeah, an interesting one, definitely.
It's interesting. Yeah. So tell us, what is Telos Foundation all about?
Yeah, well, the Telos Foundation is the foundation that supports the Telos network. And myself and AJ are both part of the foundation. We offer a number of different services to the Telos network, including marketing, PR, biz dev, obviously, partnerships, venture capital, and yeah, a lot of communication for the chain. The chain itself is a DAO, so it needs like a centralized organization to sign papers and do marketing and PR and all these different things that a decentralized community can't do effectively on its own. So the DAO that is the Telos network actually pays the foundation every single month. It's all automated on chain.
Okay. Wow.
And that's how we get funded. So then we can support the blockchain that is Telos.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's what I see, Telos is a third generation layer 1 smart contract platform.
That's right.
So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so it's a high-speed smart contract network equivalent to something like Solana or Polygon. Very low fees, like from 1 cent and up to make a transaction. Very affordable for anyone, but not too cheap that you get the kind of spam that you get on other networks. So we're very careful on that. But yeah, we can do 10,000 transactions per second, and we have hundreds of applications at this point in time. Building on both our Telos native platform and our new Telos EVM, which released in November, I think.
Okay. And Telos was founded in 2018?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
So our native platform was actually launched in late 2018, December 2018 actually. It was actually over 150 participants came together to launch the protocol. So they all contributed and received some Telos for their work. But it was all an equitable amount. Whatever they worked, they received it in USD essentially. And it was a very fair launch. We did an airdrop to a very decentralized community. There was a hard cap on that, and we sort of grew from there and had price discovery and all those good things.
Wow, wonderful. AJ, I have a question for you. when the Telos Foundation has been in for about 4 years, so how many projects are there on Telos network, as a whole?
Sure. Yeah. So there's two ways. Well, there's two different networks really for Telos, right? There's the Telos native, which is an EOSIO, effectively a fork, right, built on native C++, and then there's our EVM smart contract layer, which actually sits as a smart contract on top of our EOSIO native layer.
Okay.
That all benefits from everything that Justin just said in terms of transaction per second, low cost to transact, very low energy consumption because it's actually built on native C++, which is very energy efficient. And so we've got over 100 dApps that are built on our native layer.
Wow.
And so again, that layer's been alive since December of 2018. And then when the EVM was launched in November of last year, we started with one or two, and now we've got close to 40 dApps total, spanning kind of everything across DeFi. We have some very interesting ESG initiatives, gaming, metaverse, some social platforms as well. So kind of spans the gamut in terms of types of platforms and infrastructure as well that we have on the platform.
Okay, and you're growing.
Oh, and we're growing, yes.
Okay.
So when I joined the company in January. I believe we had 2 dApps on our EVM, and I came in to run business development, and my job was to get more dApps. So one of the things that I took the initiative on was to launch a grant program, which any good layer one apparently does these days. So basically, that helps encourage projects, helps get them financed the way that they need to be so that they can build an interesting project. And so between that and organic growth, just by getting ourselves out there and having a bigger team and being more kind of proactive in new communities, we've again grown that from 2 to close to 40. And to put it in perspective, I think we had 4 the end of January, 8 the end of February, and it's just continuing to grow every month. So we're kind of on that exponential growth curve.
Wow, that's amazing. It's been growing. I mean, you have grown quite a bit in the last 4 years.
Oh, and the team's grown quite a bit too. So as Justin mentioned, there was about 150 individual contributors that kind of went into the Genesis block of the original native platform, but there was very few full-time participants in the blockchain. It was very much community-driven, really until kind of November when the real a lot of real hiring started. So I think going into December there were maybe 6 full-time employees. And we've got over 40 people now full-time all around the world.
Wow. That's a growth, from going from 40.
And by the way, we're meeting most of them for the first time this week in person.
That's
It's been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's exciting. Wow, wonderful. Now, I see that Telos prides itself on a lot of things, but there are 2 things specifically I wanted to ask both of you. Is that Telos says that is the only EVM to have equitable decentralization. So can you shed some light on that?
Should start on this one.
Yeah, definitely. So going back to our launch, the way we did it using an airdrop that, really spread out who owned the token, but also, starting it off without doing the ICO, having VCs involved, really decentralized, who owns the token, which in the end affects who votes. As a DPoS blockchain, which stands for Delegated Proof of Stake, it's all about owning tokens, staking them, and having a vote. Sort of similar to how a company works, a publicly traded company with stock.
Right.
Only that it's more rapid voting. The block producers on the network are voted every 100 seconds, I think. They can swap over at any time based on their performance. So it's very democratic and very decentralized. We've had more VCs starting to buy in more recently, but and we actually encourage them and invite them in. But what we pride ourselves on is how fair we did it. There was totally fair access to buy the tokens from day one or earn them. And now, the VCs who are coming in, they're buying in at a fair market price. And are coming in as valuable contributors as well.
Okay, good. The second thing that I wanted to ask was, you have gone mainnet since 2018, and you've gone live since 2018. And when you compare Telos to Binance Smart Chain or Ethereum or Polygon or Polkadot or the other chains like Avalanche, which are there, Telos boasts itself saying that they have never downgraded, never degraded, or there was no congestion problem. Now, we've seen those happening with some of these chains. So, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a very good point. We've seen Binance Smart Chain go down at various points. We've seen Solana get overloaded as well, during NFT launches. Routinely, like every week. It's like, when are they up? Well,
Right.
that's the question. But yeah, part of it goes back to our base layer, being built off C++ technology, a more modern protocol. Our EVM is actually one of the very few that is actually custom built. Most EVMs are, built off Go Ethereum, and we're actually a unique build. And I think that uniqueness and, being built from the ground up to be performant makes a huge difference in why we never go down. We also price our transactions quite fairly, quite low, obviously, at only 1 cent a transaction and up, but high enough to avoid tremendous amounts of spam and overloading. So yeah, that's a big factor as well.
Right. AJ, do you want to add something to that?
I think you more or less covered it. I think I will say just the one piece, and I'm no technologist, but my understanding of how our blockchain works is that it doesn't kind of try to do tricks with itself. So there's no sharding, right? There's no roll-ups. There's no side chains. This all happens on chain. We still get the same performance, and I think you've seen with a lot of the other changes. And Solana's easy to poke fun at, but because they do sharding, that seems to be one of the big pieces of the problem. So they claim a huge amount of transactions per second, but it's actually a lot of different lanes of traffic that then need to merge at some point, right? So we do it, kind of basically in a straight line, and it's been designed in such a way that it allows it to do that without having the problems that some of the other chains have had.
Right. Because we've seen that a lot of chains are having this issue of, and we've seen Solana, particularly every week almost sometimes, So it's amazing what Telos is doing that, you're able to cut that and at the same time are able to give that faster transaction to some of the investors that are there or the ones who are holding.
One of the big reasons I decided to join, I just saw this as an uncut gem that, because it didn't have the VC backing and didn't do, a lot of the marketing things, even necessarily, well, it wasn't even necessarily the budget, it was more the coordination, right? So because we've now kind of put a team together, we're at Decentral, we're going to be at Consensus. These are our first two big conferences where we have a major presence, and the full team here. We've got 35 people, I think, that'll be here over the course of Consensus. So we've now got the organization in place and the resources in place. But for a long period of time, it was effectively this grassroots organization, and so we didn't have the hype machine behind it, but the performance was always there.
Right, yeah. And that's the key, people want, they want it to be user-friendly, and performance is the key. AJ, what are the future plans that Telos Foundation has? And then you could add to it.
And maybe just for some of your viewers, I'll talk about some of the things that we've done leading up to now, because those kind of continue into the future. So the first thing is our grant program. So launched that in February, shortly after I joined. 12 million Telos committed over a 4-year period. We've already funded dozens of projects with that, right? And this is kind of standard for any layer one. It allows you to find and identify projects, attract them to you, and then also give them the resources that they need to be successful, right? So that's one where we've funded dozens of projects, and we've got dozens more in the pipeline. So that's going to be a continued kind of strong point for us. We've done multiple hackathons. We're in the middle of Mission NFT, which is our NFT hackathon, and really the big goal of that is to attract traditional artists into the space. That's someone that I think that's a group that's historically and not very long history, but has been underrepresented in the NFT space. Maybe largely because they misunderstand it. They're afraid of it. They don't know how to use it. They've seen some bad things happen in the NFT world, and it certainly does happen. But our goal is to, one, give them a platform where they can do it, and then give them the tools that they need to do it successfully and with confidence, right? So even if you don't know how to do Solidity or write a smart contract, we have resources and we have people in place that can help you do that and launch your project and do your first NFTized piece of art in the digital space. So that's something that we're really excited about. Our EVM 2.0 is coming. There's not, a world that we can share about it, but if, our EVM 1.0 is as, good as some of the best performing blockchains out there and better in most cases, you better believe EVM 2.0 is going to have a lot of interesting things to offer. And then last but certainly not least is we do have a liquidity incentive program that we'll be launching. We can't talk too much about it now. We're putting the final details around it. But in all of these cases, the way we're looking at this is we're building for the long term, right? We're not thinking we want to get a quick pop and, get a bunch of TVL that'll be here for 3 months and then it'll be gone in month 4. Slow and steady has always been kind of, how we think we need to win the race, right? Not run after the next, piece of hype that's coming and, kind of make hay on that and then it's off to chase the next thing. It's building kind of the critical building blocks to be successful long term.
Wonderful. Justin, do you want to add something to it?
Yeah, I think AJ covered everything happening in our ecosystem, but the only thing I'd add is our liquid staking program on the EVM. We've always had a staking program on our native platform, but now extending it to the EVM, people who have MetaMask, there's millions of people who have MetaMask and want to use our EVM. So extending the program to them just makes it accessible to more people. So yeah, you can get a 14% APR on that.
Okay, wonderful. I see that there are 3 key components to every project. One, the first is the ecosystem, the governance, and the token economics. So would you like to talk a little bit about the governance at Telos Foundation?
Yeah, we have a really interesting governance platform. We have what's called the Telos Amend system. It actually allows anyone in the ecosystem, whether you have tokens or not, to propose a change to the Telos economics or the way the blockchain runs. They can put the proposal up on chain and the whole community can vote. It's completely stake weighted. So that is the way that the chain can move forward on big changes. It allows everyone to get involved. We also have our validator system is very similar. There's a way of voting. People have to vote for up to 30 block producers or validators. We have an inverse weighted voting scheme. So actually we like to discourage people to only vote for one validator. They actually have to vote for 30 to get the maximum power of their vote. It encourages more decentralization. And yeah, anything else? Worker proposal system.
On the governance, I think you nailed it. I think on the ecosystem side, and I think I mentioned this earlier, so the EVM has kind of been our focus just because it seems like that's where developers have really kind of just found that they've got the best tools and resources to build in the blockchain, right? It was kind of the hype behind, how when EOS launched was that C++ was going to be this thing that everyone uses, so everyone's going to build in it. But it basically turned out to be that it just didn't work out as the most efficient, programming language for smart contracts. From our standpoint, building into that EVM ecosystem, DeFi, GameFi, Metaverse, NFTs, social, environmental, right? All of those things are important. And I think we give them, equal credence in terms of, just building out DeFi. Yes, that's a piece of it. And certainly that's where a lot of the money flows. But we think enabling things that bring, real world change through blockchain and also onboards people from the real world or Web 2 into blockchain are going to be really important things. So, we have the liberty because we've got, this great grant program running and we can kind of decide, hey, there's a gap here, right? We don't have this solution, but we need it. So we can now prioritize this versus, 10 of the same thing, right? I mean, there's so many protocols that just fork another thing. And it's like, okay, well, now that's this then looks a little bit different, right? We want to actually build true utility around that ecosystem. And so we're very much taking an approach that says, we're not just going to focus on this one area. We're going to focus on, the long term.
And is Telos Foundation also working towards, you have some like Binance has its academy, Algorand Foundation has its kind of academy where they educate, Is Telos working towards that, or do they have something already established in place?
So we've got, well, one, our community in general is a great resource to learn about, any questions that you have on how things work. We've got developer channels where we've got, our lead dev will hop in there and help you, answer some things. We've also been having conversations with a number of interesting educator platforms that, and I think this is the biggest thing that crypto needs right now, is it actually needs education.
Exactly.
Because, without that, you can't kind of take that sovereign ownership of your financial freedom and your digital identity and all of those things. So we have been having conversations, and actually there's some things that we're looking at through our grant program that we're interested in pursuing, because to your point, education is everything right now, because as much as, maybe you didn't get in 2010 on Bitcoin, but, we're still super early, right? You have to remind yourself that every day. We are still so early into this.
Right. I remember in 2018, when I interviewed Ted Lin, the Chief Growth Officer at Binance, he said education is the key. Education at the grassroots levels is the most important thing, just like in any aspect of our lives, education is the key.
Actually, do you have Ajinkya is working on that project in India. Do you have the details on that? You want to share that a little bit?
Yeah, I've actually forgotten the name of it, but one of our staff members is building an ecosystem in India. I think he's doing regular meetups and really trying to push things forward.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, partnered with a university. The name we're forgetting right now. To your point, it's grassroots things like that, right?
Yes.
And getting out and kind of just sharing what you've learned, right? Because the journey for everyone, it doesn't happen overnight. It took me years to kind of figure a lot of this stuff out, and it really doesn't. You have to have that aha moment, and sometimes it takes a long time to have it, right?
Exactly,
but the more you can get out there and educate, I think it's going to make a huge difference for the overall community.
Right. You're right. Like Bitcoin, it took 11 years to where it is right now, so it's a step-by-step process. I have two more questions before we close. What do you think about the regulation at the global level, the compliance, how important it is for the decentralized world?
Sure. Well, I think, they're kind of oxymorons, right? Regulation, I just combined two words, and decentralization. At a global level, I'm not sure there's ever necessarily going to be one coherent standard. We've seen a lot of other countries take leadership positions and have actually, you've got, places like Dubai, places like, Lisbon becoming hubs for crypto. El Salvador adopted Bitcoin, right? as currency, right? The U.S. is way behind on that, and I think that's actually, interestingly, holding back broader adoption, because for certain retail folks, certainly for certain institutional folks, they need clarity on what is this thing that we're getting into. Is it going to be made illegal at some point? Is it going to be viewed very differently in 6 months? Right? I think almost paradoxically, I think regulation will be good for the long-term adoption of the industry. And the fact of the matter is, there's plenty of bad actors in the space, right? I would say, there might be one for every 10 good actor, but that one can do a lot of damage. And so, providing a little bit more of that protection to people, I think, is actually going to be a really important part. And when that gets sorted out, particularly with the U.S., because that tends to kind of, lead in terms of regulatory adoption, if that gets sorted out, I think that will be a net positive for the industry.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the biggest stumbling block right now for the decentralized world, the regulation part of it, and there's no much clarity on it. Yes, Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's also a need for self-regulation. We've seen recently things like Terra Luna, offering 20% on their UST stablecoin product. And admittedly, I feel like we all sort of failed the community, the broader crypto community, by not pointing out how unsustainable that is. Personally, I feel like at the Telos team, we were distracted by working hard, having our head down, but so many in our community actually, got affected by this. And even our own project, when Terra Luna went down, we went down 60% at the same time. So I think there's a need for us to call out projects that are doing unsustainable things. I think that'll help. I think maybe exchanges need to consider whether they should be listing those protocols or doing more research. I'm not sure. And I think like there's probably a need for platforms that are really doing more deeper assessment of protocols and how sustainable they are, and stop people from getting rugged, essentially.
Right, right. And I think as you really touched very important point that community is affected. And I think it's important for the projects to educate the community about different aspects of the cryptocurrency or the blockchain technology as a whole, you know.
Yeah.
And my last question, what do you think about the market where it's now and where it is heading towards? In other words, decentralized world, does it have a future? Is my question.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, myself and AJ wouldn't be in this if we didn't think it had a future. And actually, like our slogan is a faster, fairer future. And I think that's where we're sort of heading. And that's what we're aiming to create is a faster, fairer future. You know, we want to see more things in the real world get tokenized eventually. You know, things like real estate, you know, being represented as an NFT. So then it's faster to transact. You know, settlements can be done overnight. Payments can be done instantly. You know, we think stocks and everything in between should be represented by a token. Yeah, we also think, you know, social media and all sorts of different platforms should have incentives for the users, so they're earning a fair share for the work or information that they provide to make those things hum along. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, for a very long period of time, you know, the entire crypto ecosystem kind of traded differently than other markets, right? So if you want to kind of call it a diversified, you know, asset class, it was unique. And now, for you know, for whatever reason, effectively, Bitcoin trades as a risk asset. So it more or less tracks almost like a leveraged play on the NASDAQ. The overall market isn't, you know, in great condition right now. I don't think it should be doing that, and I think it will decouple again. But you know, I view this time right now. This is a great entry point. Is the way I think about it, because you know, long term, this is here to stay. We are still super early days, and if you just look at all the amazing things that have happened in this short period of time. And to be honest, you walk around a show like this and you see the talented people that are here. You're attracting some of the smartest people into a space that is, I mean, truly the Wild West. So they're taking a big gamble, right, to leave their, you know, cushy career at, you know, a Web 2 company to come and, you know, take a chance on this, and they're doing it, right. And that's, you know, it's, you go down the list of folks that you talk to, really smart people, really passionate, really hardworking. It's got nowhere to go but up.
Right.
Not financial advice, and it sure may go down in the short term, but long term, I have very high hopes and expectations for the industry.
Right. Yeah, one of the things I've been talking to a few people, like when money started, you know, from the time I grew up, we saw paper money, then it moved to the cards, the plastic money, and now it's the digital, you know. And there is a future, definitely, and the whole world is moving towards tokenization, just like how we both said, you know, it's so important. Well, thank you so much for your time, and it's been wonderful learning about Telos. And to our viewers, I would encourage you to go and check out what Telos Foundation is doing. They're doing some amazing work out there. See the projects that are there, you know, and go ahead and have a look at their project. And thank you so much again, guys. Yes.
So www.telos.net is our website. Ignite.telos.net is our grant application page. So if you're interested in bringing a project to us, go ahead and do it there, and then follow us on Twitter. Hello Telos. Did I miss anything?
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys.